My name is Ray Bennett. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, although I grew up in the Deep South. I grew up in the Jim Crow South in Tennessee, Alabama, North and South Carolina. I was in Alabama attending college in Marion, Alabama, which is 30 miles from Selma, when the Civil Rights Movement began. I was there when Viola Lucy and her young black companion were slaughtered on a dark road on a dark night near Selma. I was in Birmingham the day the 16th Street Baptist Church blew up, killing 4 young black girls. Fast forward to the mid-60s. I taught at 2 historically black colleges and universities in Birmingham and Columbia, South Carolina for 15 years. I was always in a minority in these institutions, and ironically, I was fired for the last one because they had a new president from Howard University, and he came in and did a cleansing. No white people on the faculty, so I had to leave. That was an eye-opener for me, although I wasn't surprised. Additionally and pivotally, I was in a long-term relationship with a black man, during which time we lived in an all-black neighborhood. Certainly a new experience for me. All of these experiences gave me a unique, for the time, bird's eye view of what it was like to be black in the South. And thank God I paid attention. I'm very grateful for those years. I consider them some of my most formative years. This period was my Rubicon, and it was way before I had the veil ripped away from my eyes about my own family. So when I found out that my great-great-grandfather and his son owned 25 slaves in North Carolina, I was primed for outrage. I found out by reading an online submission that some obscure relative had put on one of those genealogical websites, and they made a reference to a slave combing my great-grandmother's hair. And that's how, so I already knew. But no one had mentioned this ignominious history to me for the 50-plus years that I had been alive when I found out. My impressions of my ancestors up to that point was that they were righteous Christians, upstanding businessmen, and respected leaders in the community, which history documents as true. They were steely Calvinist, obviously unbothered by their practices, or at least that I know of. In my generation and the generation of my parents and grandparents, there was never, ever any mention. I do not know what the lives of their slaves were like, but knowing my family's temperament and behavior in successive generations, I hold no illusions that their practice of enslavement was humane, or even if they gave any thought at all to the moral implications of their deeds, or how insanely divergent their lives as slave owners were from the Christianity they proclaimed and practiced fervently. I never went to a single family reunion or anything that they weren't thumping the Bible. It is chilling to contemplate, and I don't have any information about this, but that's one of the things that I intend to do as I move forward on my journey, is to research in more detail what actually went on. But it's clear to me that, because I think I've always pondered the question, why, what were they thinking? But I think that in the end, I think that they opted for status in a society where slavery was sanctioned and made desirable. And that is chilling also. So here I am, co-founding Speaking Truth with 2 colleagues, one of whom is also a descendant, and we're trying to put together an archive of descendants who are willing to acknowledge their family's history as oppressors, discuss how this knowledge has affected them or changed them, and what they're doing at the concrete level to make amends. I have also funded an exhibit of vintage and emerging African American artists at the Blanton Museum in Texas with the express purpose of bringing into the light the brutality and injustice that is the quotidian for contemporary black Americans. Here's my philosophy about making atonement from the standpoint of a descendant. My family committed an egregious, unforgivable sin against humanity by owning slaves. It is imprinted in history for all times. Nothing can change the facts. It is my responsibility as a descendant to move this history forward, to create a counterpoint, not to redeem my family. God knows they're a lost cause. But I want to put my mark down for renunciation, apology, and making amends in the present. I represent the perpetrators, and in my view, I have no choice morally except to atone for this in the most intelligent and sincere and giving way that I can.